How are you doing, guys, from Yonkers Voice? Today we sitting here with Councilman Mr. Michael Sabatino. Michael, thank you for having me.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Michael, the reason why we're sitting here today is to address an issue that I think is important, cyberbullying. Okay, we've been hearing a lot about cyberbullying in our schools, kids committing suicide because of it, because they don't know how to deal with it. But there is also another aspect of the cyberbullying that affects adults like you and I and thousands of others. Lots of folks are using the tool that we today have, the internet, as something where they can use to bully this person or that person or that person. How you feel about that, sir?
It's a totally unacceptable practice. Actually, when I first got into office in 2012, my first piece of legislation was zero tolerance for bullying in the workplace, okay? And that encompassed any kind of bullying, whether person to person, cyberbullying, excuse me. And prior to that, I was working with other groups for our children, especially, the LGBT community. There's an organization called GLSEN that introduced a lot of legislation in many states about bullying in general, not just for LGBT people, but in bullying, cyberbullying. I know that the Board of Education here has a new version of their code out which prohibits cyberbullying. The issue is that we can only address it if we're informed about it. You know, I think a lot of people either brush it off or they take it so personal and then they don't report it. So it's like anything else. If we don't know about it, how can we do anything about it? And this goes for adults too. I mean, this goes on, people are bullied at work. People might be bullied between, two individuals. And I've been told from the HR department that my piece of legislation has helped them with investigations and being able to actually either reprimand or write up someone who is doing any bullying in the workplace.
In the workplace, but with the social platforms, the internet, you can now cyberbully across state lines. How do you control it? And tons of people think that the First Amendment gives you the right to say anything you want, with no legal consequences, nothing.
Right.
And very often, you go to the police department and you file a complaint, and they tell you, well, we really don't have the tools to address that issue.
Right.
But this is causing hardship, not just bullying people. There is people that are bullying businesses, brand names, because now they feel that they can fake something, put it on the internet, and they actually are hurting local businesses.
Yeah. I don't know how it's possible to address it. The only way that it can be addressed is the social media companies have to set up criteria of what can be on their sites. I think just a parallel example is what went on in the political scene with all these bots going on, fake news or fake statements or fake, So I don't know how they control it. I mean, I know Facebook is looking at this, but it's got to be a tremendous undertaking. How do you screen things, and then how do you screen things and then keep within the First Amendment rights? As political figures, we have less, we're open fodder for anybody. If somebody's running, there's not much you can do about it, You just have to have big shoulders. But the thing that's very concerning is that bullying often leads to people getting depression, and especially in our young people, some adults committing suicide. And that's very serious.
Drastic consequences when you bully. And tons of people out there, I've seen it, I experienced it somehow.
Mhm.
They feel that First Amendment protects them against anything they say.
Mhm.
I guess they don't realize that if you know it's a lie and you maliciously use that lie to cause harm to somebody else, I'm not an attorney,
Right.
but I don't think that First Amendment
No, I
protects
think, yeah, I mean, First Amendment rights are within, it doesn't give you the right to harm somebody, you know. It gives you the right to protest. And that, I think, was the biggest thing about, you know, to voice your opinion against an issue that the government might be doing that you're opposed to.
Correct.
So.
That's the intent.
I think, yes, but as things happen, you know, people expand on what they think, you know, their rights are. And it's a big problem, and I don't see it getting any better. It's only going to get worse with the amount of, excuse me, the amount of social media, websites, and the technology the way it is, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get any better, but I think the politicians like you should find a mechanism that will protect the victims
Right.
of cyberbullying.
Mhm.
Well, that cannot be allowed.
And I know that there's some legislation up at the state. I don't know where it is at this point. You know, I could probably check with our state senator and assemblies, but I know they are addressing it primarily on the school level. But as you said, you know, it's not only school students that are affected, adults are affected. Anybody can be affected.
And lives can be destroyed, Mr.
Yeah.
Sabatino. You know, in today's age with the Google and all these search
Yeah.
engines, if somebody lies about you so many times,
Right,
then that name is searchable.
right.
And you can go and look for the job, and if somebody puts your name in and all that stuff comes out, you
Yeah.
might not get that job.
Yeah. And it also, you know, I've had this happen to me. I mean, I've had reports of things that are totally false. But I have very little recourse because I'm in the public eye. But it's disturbing, but, you know, being a political official, I mean, you have to kind of put it in a particular compartment because, and I don't bother to refute it because it only exacerbates it. Yeah, it just fuels the whole process.
So perhaps a little education for our members, people in general. Just because you find it on Google, it does not
Doesn't mean
so.
it's true.
Doesn't mean it's true.
Mhm.
So just because somebody wrote something and you search and their name came up, does not mean it's true. So search around, inquire, ask, find out. Don't take somebody's word for it. Now, Mr. Sabatino, what about your political
Yeah.
future? What is it?
Well, I definitely want to stay in government. You know that I'm term limited. I have one more year. I haven't decided yet, but I'm weighing a possibility of running for mayor. But
Is that right?
But I haven't made my decision yet, so don't jump with the news.
You guys heard it. You heard it.
I'm leaving my name in contention, but it's a lot to think about, you know.
Yes.
I would, I have a lot of things to weigh, and I'm not making a commitment right now. I have until early next year to make a final decision. And if I shouldn't run, I might consider other offices, or I would probably look for a role in government.
So,
You know, I'm very involved in human rights, so I might look at something in human rights, whether it be at the state level or the federal level. So, you know, I feel that I've served my city very well, and I think even if I decide not to run for mayor, I think I can be beneficial in many ways to different levels of government.
So there is a possibility by next year, this time around, I will be interviewing Mayor
be.
Sabatino.
Could be.
It's a possibility. Now, Michael, since you brought up term limits,
Right.
we hear, I don't know if I'm going to call it rumors,
Right.
but some zooms about the possibility of a
Okay,
term
so
limit extension.
I will tell you what my position is, and this has been my consistent position. My position is that term limits were put in by the constituents. It was voted on twice. If term limits are to be extended, then it has to go back to the constituents as a referendum. I do not feel comfortable voting on term limits extension just by being one of the council members that can change that.
But
So-
there is a possibility that
There
it might
is a
not go to
possibility.
votes, might be a referendum from the council people.
Well, the referendum would have to be done from the Charter Commission.
Okay.
It doesn't come from the council.
Okay.
It has to come from the Charter Commission to put a referendum forward.
Now,
And we're losing time on that if we want to
Yeah.
affect next year's elections.
so if this was to be implemented, an extension on term limits, where would that place you? Would you
I
still
would probably, run for another term.
run for another term?
Yeah.
And you've been in touch with the people who voted for you, your district, and they happy? Tell us about something that you promised and you have done, and that what you're most proud of, Michael.
Oof, let me think about that. Well, I think what I'm most proud of is the fact that it's not any particular issue, but that I'm a person who is opening to listening to what people need. And I try to do my best. And I think what I'm most proud of is that I often get feedback that I respond to people directly, or I'm very responsive. I mean, I may not be able to solve everybody's problems, but when I get an email, I would say it's very rare that it takes me more than 24 hours to respond. Usually I respond within hours. And I think the people like the fact that I am responsive
And reachable.
and reachable. And, I mean, I'm not opposed to answering my own phone if a staff member is not available. I pick it up. I'm out in the community. Some of my opponents accuse me of just being out there for photo ops. But if you notice, whenever I post on my Facebook page, I always say I'm at. There's not necessarily a picture of me there. I'm always saying I'm at this event. I found that not everybody is comfortable calling in to make a complaint or to reach me. But when I'm out in the community, I don't think there's a time when I'm out in the community that someone doesn't come up to me and addresses a problem that they're confronting or asks about something or makes a suggestion. So when I'm out there, that's when most of my work is done. And I think people notice that, and, if I don't have an answer, I try to get back to them, or I direct them to who they should call. I guess that's one of the things I'm most proud of how I conduct myself as an elected official.
Now, Mr. Sabatino, let me tell you something that tons of people in Yonkers are not happy with. Not with you personally, but with the way things worked out. Budget crisis 2018, right?
Yep.
We got a one-shot deal from Albany.
As we get a lot of one-shot deals
We get a lot
every year.
Exactly. But we are running to the same, if not worst, budget crisis in 2019.
Yep.
I have heard from some of your colleagues, council people, that we're just going to lobby in Albany. Well, that's a crazy formula.
Right.
Okay. In the meantime, there is huge tax brackets given away to prospective investors in Yonkers. How do we reconcile that?
All right, so that's it's a big issue to address. First of all, the budget crisis. There is, I mean, I've been on the council now 7 years, and I really think that especially the education formula is not favorable to us, and that needs to be changed. And I know this has been going on for decades. There is issues with not getting the same reimbursement rate as some of the other major cities, and that should not be. And I know people are tired of hearing this, but the wealth of our city is based on the wealth of the county. And we really have to look at Yonkers, and we have to get the state to look at Yonkers as a separate entity. We are the biggest city in the county, and we are the fourth largest city in the state. And the calculations need to be done on the tax base and the real estate base here in Yonkers, not based on the whole county. And that's what the formula is based on. Now, I'm hopeful that with the potential change in the Senate, if we get the Senate majority, that we can work on hopefully addressing that problem and maybe getting a resolution to adjusting that calculation. Also, with the buildings, our school buildings, we only get reimbursed 73%, where Rochester, Buffalo, and Albany get like 98%. You know, so it's not equitable.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. And of course, I mean, we are a big city. We have our municipal workers who have contracts that we need to abide by. And I was a union worker myself, so I understand that. And a lot of the unions did give us some givebacks. But, you know, our population keeps growing, the services we need keep growing, and we need to really look at reworking how reimbursements are done by the state and how we generate revenue. The city council has taken some of the controller's recommendations. We are in the process of hiring 2 auditors that will audit the city financials and the city departments, and will also be auditing the Board of Ed, in hopes that we can see, you know, if things are done properly, and if they're not, what cost savings might that give us?
Right after the budget crisis, after it passed, we interviewed Mr. John Rubel.
Mm-hmm.
John Rubel clearly told us, when I asked the question, how it's going to be next year, he said probably the same thing as this year.
May even be worse.
Or worse. So they said no tax increases, but Mr. Rubel is saying it's going to be the same as last year.
I don't know that we'll have a tax increase.
Well,
but
we didn't think we were going to have one now either.
Right. But I will say, the tax increase, unfortunately, was not something that we all wanted to do. And we did all vote for it. I mean, it was something that we just had no other avenue other than to raise the taxes. None of us really want to raise taxes. I mean, it's not the top priority on all of our lists, but in order to maintain the services, not to have layoffs, at this point, given the information that we had, we really had.
Well, Mr. Sabatino, I have to play devil's advocate.
Right.
If you had said, not you, I'm not saying you
Right.
personally, but all the others, had said when they were running that increasing tax, it's a possibility, probably they would not be voted in. So they all said, no tax increases.
Right.
But it happens that we had tax increases. Mr. Rubel said that next year we might be at the same spot as we are, this year, maybe worse. So chances are, to get us out of the hole, another tax increase. We also spoke with the council president, Mr. Cater, and he said that Mr. Rubel might be right. So where are we? What are we doing not to be in the same spot in 2019 as
like
we
I
were in
said,
2018?
we are hiring these auditors.
When? Budget is coming up soon.
Yeah, the auditors will be under the domain of the Inspector General. They're in the process of interviewing auditors to help us review everything that needs to be reviewed. And I don't know that we're going to find a golden egg anywhere, but we know the importance of this. The city council president and myself have talked about setting up meetings as early as next month to go up to Albany to discuss, what situation we're in. Because we can't continue to go on like this year after year after year. In order to balance the budget, we need revenues. And, there's not many more revenues that we can add. And we need to look at this reimbursement by the state. Now, we feel pretty confident that the municipal side will be okay next year. It's the Board of Education side we're expecting the big deficit.
Okay. How I'm going to pose this? Do you think that the problem with the financial situation in Yonkers is a matter of bad financial management? Or what do you think is the root cause? Because this is not something that just happened last year. It's year after year after year after year.
I don't say that, no, I don't feel that it's bad financial management. I think the issue is that, the big part of it is that we don't get the money we should get as a city from the state. And I'm not blaming our legislators. You have to understand that we have 4 legislators that fight for Yonkers. But it's not those legislators that we have to convince. There are other legislators in the state that we have to convince and make them aware of our problems. When I was up in Albany lobbying for marriage equality, I didn't spend my time going to my legislators that I knew were supportive. I had to go to the other legislators around the state, in upstate New York and Long Island, and educate them on the issue. They need to get an understanding of what the situation here is in Yonkers. Because we can't do anything without a vote from the Assembly and the Senate to change anything. And, in the recent past, the Senate has been controlled by the Republicans. And, we've had to fight for whatever we've gotten. And most of the money has come from the governor.
Are you saying that we are having a problem articulating our issues to those people?
What I'm saying is that we're not reaching the people that we need to change their minds to be supportive of.
Why not?
I don't know. When I went up to Albany as an individual, I went around to those legislators that I knew in the other parts of the state. We have to focus, our legislators, Shelley does a great job of bringing whatever she can, Andrea, all of them bring, what they're able to bring. But we have to be able to convince the other legislators that are in the state to understand the problems that we face here in Yonkers, so that when something comes up with a revenue issue or a bill that gives money to Yonkers, we have to educate them on what our situation is here.
Well, hopefully midterm elections are coming up in
Yes.
how many days? 60 days?
Yeah.
75
Less
days?
than
Whatever,
that, I
something
think.
like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully the House and the Senate will flip, and we will not have to worry about budget.
And then we have issues with the federal grants. A lot of federal grants have been cut.
Okay.
That impacts on us as well. So that's another level of issues.
So, we don't want to take too much of your time, and we thank you for taking the time to come over. But I have to ask you a question that everybody's asking. I know the answer, but I want that to come from you. Why is Yonkers investing money on the, how they call it, LimeBikes?
Oh, LimeBikes. We don't pay anything for those.
I know. We actually are getting paid from the.
I'm not even sure if we get paid. It may or may not be. My understanding is it is a separate company who comes in, and we're just allowing them to provide a service to our communities.
So, guys, you heard it. Yonkers is not spending a dime on the bikes. It's not your tax money going towards those bikes. Yonkers is only allowing a company to provide that service to the community, which is actually a great service.
And it's working out very well.
And it's working. For what I hear, it's a very
very
successful program. Of course, we always have a handful of kids that,
Yeah, that's with anything,
with anything.
you know. But for the most part, I mean, I've gotten very positive response from the residents.
And that's why I have-
Especially residents that, you know, what the nice thing is that you can just leave the bike wherever you are. You don't have to dock it anywhere. So there's residents that I've been told that are taking now, they used to walk to the train station. Well, now they're riding a bike to the train station and taking the bike home.
But Mike, now let me ask you this, just so I can understand. We have a law that sidewalks that have to have a hill for the wheelchair people to go through. Now I see these bikes all over, taking the entire sidewalk, and I
They
actually,
shouldn't really be on the sidewalk, they should be in the street.
but I see them most of the time on the sidewalk.
Right.
So, and I have noticed once a lady on the wheelchair, she was actually having a hard time how to run down to the street to go around the bikes because the bikes was taking all over
Okay, so you're talking about the parked bikes on the
Yes,
sidewalk.
yes, yes.
That's a point we should,
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
but
she
it's
couldn't.
true.
She couldn't. She's trying to manage. How am I going to go around? She couldn't
So
go
that
down
is
on the
something that
road
we should bring the attention
because
to.
there
on
was
the-
no hill where she
On the
was.
narrower sidewalks, we shouldn't,
Yeah,
Those
and
bikes
I think
shouldn't
it
be
was in the
parked.
square. She was coming down, and then she, saw all these bikes, and she's
Right.
trying to get down, but no hill.
right.
So I actually had to stop the car and move it so she could go by.
Right, right.
But we have
Well, that's something to bring
you
it
know,
to the
things like
attention,
this.
yeah.
well,
But I can assure you, I don't think we're getting any money on it. It's just a service that we provide. I mean, they're not charging an enormous amount, so I mean, I'm sure they're making money.
yeah.
But, and even the high school students, or any of the students can apply for a discount, and they get a half charge than the regular
Well, I
charge.
just wanted this to come out from you because
Yeah.
sometimes when I say they think that maybe I have a motive, why
Right,
I'm
no.
saying that,
No,
it is not costing the city any money.
no,
Your
it's
tax.
none of our money is going to that.
Exactly, so just make it.
They do all the repairs, they do all the maintenance, they have GPSs on them, so they locate the bikes, and then they position the bikes every few days. So so they can track where the bikes are.
Well, Mike, thank you for your time. Is
You're
there
welcome.
anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to let the people know?
No, I just, I mean, I enjoy serving my community. The most rewarding thing to me is the constituent service. In other words, if someone has a problem, having the ability to potentially solve that problem or lead them to someone that can solve that problem is very rewarding.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. On that note, we're going to end this episode. And guys, always stay tuned for Yonkers Voice. We bring to you the things that really matter to you. If it matters to our people, it matters to Yonkers Voice. See you later.